Good evening and welcome to tonight's Gallant Few podcast regarding the Premier League catch-up. We've got a couple of weeks to go until the Premier League season kicks off, so we thought we'd do a little check-in just based on some of the news and transfers that are happening right now in the Premier League. As ever, I'm not here myself. I've got a few here to help me dissect some of the information. Graham, welcome back. How's things?
Right, Jamie, thanks for having me on. All good.
Colin, yourself, how's things?
Evening, Jamie. Evening, gents. Good to be back on for the weekly catch-up of who's moving to Saudi this time.
And last but not least, Johnnie, how's things?
I'm good, Jamie. Thank you. Evening, lads. Yeah, Saudi's becoming a problem.
Yeah, I think when I was doing the notes today, I was kind of putting an agenda together, and I think the first four bullet points were all about Saudi because it's pretty much inevitable to not get away from it right now. Obviously, when we talk about the Premier League, now that doesn't necessarily affect the Premier League and such, but I don't think we can do a pod without actually talking about this world record bid that's kind of on the table at the moment regarding Mbappe from Paris Saint-Germain. If I'm right in thinking it's something like £260 million as a transfer fee. The guy's got 1 year left on his contract, and apparently he's hoping to potentially go to Real Madrid come the end of the season, as the end of the new season, go on a free. But with such a world record bid kind of going on the table, it being from Saudi, it doesn't surprise me it's from Saudi, but it's kind of keen to kind of get your thoughts. And the reason being is that we've associated people going to Saudi for probably the back part of 20, early 30s, maybe as a journeyman. If they get Mbappe, that's a completely different scenario, isn't it? Graham, you're shaking your head. You're not buying it.
I just think it's really dodgy in my opinion. Anyway, I think there's a few things being made by people saying some of the bids going about is quite dodgy. Right, Mbappe's coming into last year's contract. I think Real Madrid weren't kind of willing to pay much more than, say, even maybe 120 million. I'm sure one of you might have a correct figure. I'm sure it was around that. Even at that, PSG would have said that was unacceptable. The amount of money they would lose on Mbappe overall since he joined from Monaco. And then out of nowhere, Saudi team comes in with that 269 million bid. The kind of money that would probably recoup them a lot, and considering that if Mbappe stays beyond August, he gets a £60 million loyalty bonus as well. So I don't know. It's all a bit fishy. It really is. Look, it's easy to say you go for the money, but if you're about to get 60 million a loyalty bonus in August, and if you can just hold firm and just go, do you know what? Nah, I want to play for Real Madrid. I want to be one of the best players that's ever played the game. Then he's not going to go, is he? All the money in the world. It's not as if he's going to be a poor man at Real Madrid either if he holds out. So I hope he doesn't go, but we'll see.
Johnnie, what about yourself?
Yeah, it's a crazy transfer fee, mate. We've seen. I mean, look at the record transfer fees as they are. I think the highest, we were discussing it last week, I think was a Neymar for about 220 million euros. So it's not a huge jump, considering you're talking about people with endless money. I mean, it looks like it's oil-based money, and these people, it's just obscene amounts of money that they hold. So they can afford to do that. They can afford to bring anybody they want. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean the player wants to go, but to get a club to accept and to agree terms with most players is, I would say, pretty straightforward for them. Does it change their league? No. The depth across the board is poor. You can bring in, I don't know where we are, say there's 40 players injected into that league that they've spent big money on. It's not going to be enough because it's made up of journeyman, homegrown players. Now, it's no disrespect to them, but it's definitely a huge drop down. So until that league starts filling those gaps with maybe journeyman quality for European leagues, in the top leagues, I don't think anybody's going to sit up and take notice. Yeah, it's going to open your eyes because, say, for example, if he went there, if Mbappe went, yeah, you'd open your eyes and you'd go, wow. But I don't see it making a huge difference to that league until they get a broader spectrum of players brought in.
Colin, I heard something today and it was it kind of made me think, because we've seen these graphics of what this means in terms of a wage for Mbappe. They're talking about 700 million across a yearly contract, which works out about 20 quid an hour. But probably the most funny stat I seen was that if you take
I think it's more than 20 quid an hour, Jamie.
Well,
I think.
No, 20 quid a second, I think it was. Sorry, 20 quid a second. Sorry, that was probably more realistic. The one I seen was, kind of had me chuckling, is that if you take the Mbappe's supposed transfer and his wages, it would be double what the Saudis just paid for Newcastle United. That's mental, isn't it?
It's absolutely wild, and it's I don't know. It's to try and bring a wee bit of balance, because I know a lot of people are hating what's happening in Saudi. You know, if Real Madrid were doing this, you wouldn't bat an eye. I don't think if they were paying that type of money. I mean, mental transfers have continued to happen in Europe for the last 20, 30 years, and inflation just keeps on putting extra zeros onto the players' valuations. That's probably my big thought about this, is just the domino effect. So if Mbappe goes, you're pumping all this money into PSG, they're going to spend that money elsewhere, and it just does hike the prices and the spending around Europe significantly, and it's a domino effect. I kind of disagree with Johnnie on what it means for the league. I think Mbappe going will be a bit of a game changer. I think we're already seeing a lot of players who can play at the top level in Europe going, or considering going. I know Bernardo Silva for Man City, he's a big one. I don't know if that's confirmed yet, but players of that ilk, it's no unlikely that more and more of them are going to go. Mbappe, one of the top 5 players in the world right now, that will make people stand up and think, especially when Cristiano Ronaldo's over there already as well. And of course, the bold Jack Hendry going to play for Steven Gerrard, who doesn't want to play alongside him. I think it might be a bit of a game changer.
Graham, go.
Yeah, just it's interesting. Obviously, the boys have kind of mentioned, the game changers, and I was driving home the other day, and there was a boy down the road from me jumping about in a Al Nassr top with an Aldo in the back, and
No danger.
and I'm just saying that's it. It's the first kid I've seen. I think obviously, look, the aim of this from the Saudis, I totally get it. It's going to be completely different to what we saw maybe in China, a few years back, because the Saudis essentially have unlimited money and they do want to make their league huge, and people are talking about whether it's going to be in the top 5 leagues in the world. Now, if you're seeing the effect of Ronaldo, arguably one of the greatest players that there's ever been, you're seeing kids wearing Al Nassr, then I totally get how you could see the Saudi League really taking off in terms of popularity, and you'll see kids running around in a lot of the Saudi tops, whether that's Mbappe in the back, Silva, Ronaldo. So, look, what they're planning and what they're executing in essence looks to already be working, to be honest.
I think one of the things, I'll come back to the Mbappe thing, but one of the things I didn't realise is that Saudi's time zone is very, very similar to the UK's, and it'll be interesting to see if they start to move their timing to a weekend slots, for their games, roughly say 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock on a weekend, where traditionally there's the British blackout. And whether one of the channels kind of picks up the Saudi games, for example, I think that's where we'll start to see great change in terms of awareness of the league and what's going on and who's playing where. One of the key things I think about the Mbappe is I'm with Graham. I don't see him going at all. I think this is a power play from PSG trying to force him at the club, because they've kind of got their panties in the twist that they're going to lose him on a free and they didn't expect to. I think the challenge that they have is it's all on Madrid. If Madrid have 120 million available right now, they'd probably go and pay it, and PSG would accept it just to get him off the books. I don't think Madrid factored that in and looking to maybe pick him up on a free next year. But even then, signing on fee for somebody like Mbappe is probably near enough 100 million. So I wouldn't be surprised if he forces himself to stay at PSG, PSG have threatened to stick him on the bench for the season, but I don't think they have the ability to do that and get away with it because they've already lost Messi. That would leave them Neymar as their only registered out-and-out striker, of that kind of caliber. And even then, he's injury-prone throughout the season. So I think Mbappe probably stays at PSG and still goes at the end of the season. So I would fully expect him to reject the Saudi deal or not even entertain speaking to them. I think this is probably just PSG trying one of their own power plays. But I want to keep it in Saudi because there's a few things that have happened in the last week. And I think one of the ones that does intrigue me, we had the first official manager approach. Marco Silva was reported to be offered a 40 million deal across 2 years, which would put him on a par, I think, with what Steven Gerrard's been paid. Now that's significant because ultimately he's a Premier League manager, and I don't think we've kind of got that close. I found it quite refreshing to see that he'd obviously rejected it. But it does surprise me that he rejected it. Graham, I'll come to you first because I know you've been pretty vocal on Silva. You respect what Silva does, but you always anticipated he would move on to some team. Are you surprised that he stayed?
Very surprised. As you said, I've said countless times, if you look through his record, he's really been at a club more than a year, whether that's through being successful, moving on, which certainly since he came to England was more the case. And I think I said, look, how well Fulham perform and how well they grow and continue to perform going forward will be down with whether he stays or not. And he has, so yeah, very, very surprised, to be honest. But it's good. Look, you want to see the best managers being retained, so pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm. And Johnny, just on the Marco Silva, there was obviously, I think the same day, there was a rejected bid for Alexander Mitrovic. What kind of promises do you think Marco Silva's been given in order to fend off 40 million for 2 years and stay with Fulham?
I don't. I think Mitrovic is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not quite there, but I think that's going to happen. We've seen how vocal the player is, and we know what he's like when he goes off on one. He's quite hard to get back once it kicks off. So, yeah, I think that one's done. I like you, I was quite refreshed with Marco Silva. I thought that was. I think it was touted before. Until what we'd heard in recent days, there was talk of him going, and he said flat out then that it wasn't something that appealed to him. He's built up his reputation really, really well, and he's doing that at Fulham. That's not an easy feat.
Yeah.
And he's signed really, really well. The personnel that he's got. So, yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and it can turn any head. But if he's serious about where he is with his managerial career, he could go there, it could face plant, and getting back and getting the clout that he had raised. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I can understand why not. And I think it's a good move for him. I would probably not financially, but professionally.
As we say, one of the things that kind of stands out is that the Premier League's so fickle that, see, if Fulham was to lose the 6 opening games of the season, who do you think's going to get sacked first? That's what surprises me, actually, if he could kind of guarantee himself that kind of an income over a 2-year period. But he's obviously he's rolled the dice a little bit. And I think we joked in our chat, without Silva, Fulham would have been struggling, wouldn't
they? Yeah, absolutely. 100%. We mentioned that I think the last pod that they were just incredibly refreshing last year, and they surprised a lot of people, myself included. I think I tipped them to go down. So you can only really take your hat off to them on both counts.
And Colin, obviously Johnny touched on the fact that Mitrovic is probably potentially on his way out. They pretty much confirmed that they do have somebody coming the other way in, and it's Jimenez, Raul Jimenez from Wolverhampton Wanderers, the Mexican number 9. 5.5 million. That sounds awfully cheap, doesn't it, for a striker of a number 9 quality of his? He's not been firing, should I say, since his injury, but 5.5 million sounds awfully cheap, doesn't it?
I was looking at that today, and I was really surprised how cheap that is. And I don't know if Wales maybe have some plans in the transfer markets where they need to free up their wages, and they've got people coming in, and maybe that's why they're looking to cut their losses. Because I would expect he'd be on a decent wage. He won't be the highest earner at Wales, but he'll be above mid-table in terms of how much he's earning there. So 5.5 million. cracking bit of business if they pull that off, and that's what we said last week. Fulham do need to get some strikers in. I think they still need another one in before Mitrovic goes, because once that Mitrovic deal gets over the line, clubs are going to double the asking price for any players that Fulham go for, knowing that they've got that money in the back burner. So, no, cracking bit of business if it gets over the line. Just need one more before Mitrovic goes.
And I think just a piece on Jimenez, he obviously had that horrific injury where he fractured his skull, and I've said he's probably not been the same player, but he's due a change now, into he's due a move now that he needs to get some kind of form back in his play.
I think you do need to look at the fact before this season ends, he'll turn 33. So, I mean, yeah, he's had a horrendous injury, but he's not a young player that, this is his chance to get back on it. I think £5.5 million's pretty fair price all round, personally. I think it could go two ways, to be honest. It could be decent. He could bag them a few goals. He's certainly not going to be a direct, absolute replacement for Mitrovic if he goes. But at the same time, it could be very bit part. So I think £5.5 million's pretty fair.
Fair enough. Cool. And obviously sticking with Saudi, my beloved club. So I shared a video earlier that Jordan Henderson deal is pretty much nailed in now. I think he was videoed today walking around Anfield doing his goodbye video with the LFC media. So I'm going to have the tissues out for when that gets released. But Henderson looks all but confirmed. The Fabinho one looks to have kind of hit a bit of a stalemate. There was a report that it was due to his dogs. He's got 2 French bulldogs, and apparently the French bulldogs are banned in Saudi Arabia, and apparently they weren't getting special permissions to kind of get the dogs a license. However, I do believe I think about 4 other players that have all got similar dogs, and special privileges have been made for them. It was reported today that it has nothing to do with the dogs, which sounds comical, but apparently he's about to turn up to Liverpool training tomorrow because a deal still has not been struck in terms of the payments. And on the back of that, we've got a failed bid today, which was the first opening bid from Liverpool to Roma Lavia from Southampton, the young 20-year-old. Johnnie, do you think, obviously with the Henderson deal going and another one coming in, it sounds as though it's a swap for swap. I'm not saying they're the same quality, but if Fabinho stays, that's not the worst thing in the world, is it?
No, I think you need to keep Fabinho if you can. He plays virtually every game. He's consistent. He's pretty much the guy that does what nobody else wants to do. The lad Lavia is a prospect, but he's still very, very young. I think he's 21.
Yeah.
And he's only had one full season. It wasn't even a full season. I think it was maybe 30 games. So I think they want 50. I think Liverpool offer 40 today. I think they're going to try and hold for the price. But I mean, it's a gamble, but it's an investment too. I mean, he looks like a tidy player. And once you step up in club, there's a good chance he learns a lot more and he steps up in game as well. So is it a direct replacement? It's a time will tell kind of factor. I think Henderson going, I don't want to sound harsh, but I don't think it's a huge loss for you. I think Henderson was at the back end. Excellent to have around, absolutely. Yep. But as a player, I think you probably have better on the books as it is in your cover, never mind your first team. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good replacement. Maybe not right away, but definitely in the future.
Yeah, and I think, with the greatest respect, Liverpool didn't plan on Fabinho leaving this summer. It was probably a shock to the system when that transfer came in. The Henderson one was probably more thought of, as you said, because of the age. Graham, obviously Liverpool have done a bit of business. We've talked about the likes of McAllister and Szoboszlai coming in. With Lavia coming in, do you think that's them enough to go into the season, or do you still think they're missing 1 or 2 players? And if you do, where would you put them?
First of all, I think it could be a good thing for Liverpool. Actually losing, I know it might sound a bit counterproductive, losing your captain, Fabinho, etc. But actually, in my opinion, I think one of the issues with Liverpool is they've just gone a bit stale. And I think losing some of these players that have been there for for a bit of time could be a good thing. There's certainly some really promising younger players as well at Liverpool that I think, that getting that balance right for Klopp, where bringing the players in that you've just talked about, whether they get Lavia, and boys like, I don't know, Elliott, Ben Doak, Jones.
Beatic.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Yeah.
sometimes it's not just all about let's just go spend. I think if you do it wisely and maybe they spine your team in certain areas, and I think Liverpool already have. I think McAllister will be a really good signing, but at the same time, when you've got really promising youth there, I think it might be that balancing act this season for Liverpool. So maybe one more after Lavia, maybe, I don't know. I think the midfield still feels relatively quite short potentially, certainly in the central position, depending on if Fabinho goes or not. But yeah, I think I'd like to see some of the youth get more of a chance for Liverpool because they do look extremely promising.
And Colin, just to kind of hash out the last bit on Liverpool, they did the business quite early on in the beginning of last season when it comes to the strikers. You could probably pick a front six right now with the amount of strikers they've got on the books. I don't think scoring goals will be the issue going next season. Do you think the midfield transition and the defensive is probably the issue again? And what I mean by that is obviously through pre-season, Klopp's been pretty adamant of using Trent as this makeshift midfield and then moving back to the right back. Do you still see that being the issue, or do you think you'll line it out with the new bodies?
I think that's going to be the issue. I think Liverpool will be one of the highest scoring teams in the league this year, but I think they'll drop points as it currently stands with probably the lack of. It doesn't fill me with confidence that defensive doesn't look like there's a lot of stability there, particularly in the midfield, as you said, in the transition. Fabinho and Henderson is almost like that midfield anchor. They're there to protect and recycle the ball and just allow the forward players to go and do their things. And I like Lavia. I don't think he can be your main man for 50 games a season, but maybe 2-3 years time we're talking about him getting to Fabinho levels. But I think he needs a Fabinho to play alongside, or to be in the same squad of it. They won't play alongside each other, but it'll be one or the other. I don't think Lavia can do it consistently this year. So my concern is I think Henderson's definitely going, and I agree. I think that's the right move. I think Fabinho, you need to keep him for at least another year just to allow with that transition, and it's a bit of a game changer because I don't know who they bring in to replace Fabinho. If Lavia is it, they need another one for depth. I don't think you get somebody of Fabinho's quality and experience, and that would be Liverpool's downfall this year, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Appreciate that. Graham, I'll come to you on this one because I know obviously you were quite vocal in the chat. So Forest have obviously, they're not doing what they did last year and went out and bought 742 different players in one season. And it looks as though they've been a bit more selective in the process, but they've just recently announced that they've picked up Elian Alanga from Manchester United for 50 million. You didn't seem to like that one in the chat yourself. What was your thoughts on that one?
I just don't rate him, and it looks like Ten Hag agrees with me, to be honest.
Do you not think he was maybe just in a poor team? Not being played out of position, maybe, or you could say the same about a lot of Man U players, couldn't you? Really?
But we are talking about Man United. I get they've had, well, I say a tough time, but I mean they still win trophies, etc. But you are talking about Man United. Listen, some of the players they've brought through over the years, some of the players are still continuing to bring through. Alanga's not good enough. Simple as that. Maybe found his level at Nottingham Forest. I think 50 million is English Premier League prices, and that is honestly about as much as I've got to say. I just don't think he's good enough for Man U. And yeah, big 88 agrees.
Johnny, in terms of obviously a cross between one thing we spoke about Man U was they were looking to obviously start shifting players. I don't think we anticipated Alanga would be the starting point of that, did you?
Yeah, they haven't been shifting much, have they? I've not really seen loads of them at Man United. I don't think he's a world beater either, but I would have said the exact same thing. Sorry, the exact same thing about Gibbs White, and that turned out to be shrewd business. He was a big reason they're still in the league.
That was like 3 times the price, though, wasn't it? Was it? Did they pay
Yeah,
out something like
that's
45 for him?
exactly, and that was still a head scratcher. If they had said 15 for Gibbs White, I still would have said it was too much. So I would agree. It's back to the Premier League tax regarding the fee, considering how much he's played. But I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be awful. Like you said, he might find his level, so it might be a good signing for them. Yes, absolutely not good enough at the top end of the table, but it might work out okay for them.
Colin, and on terms of the Nottingham Forest, as I said this time last year, they had an absolute brickload of people coming in. We don't kind of have that same traction right now. It seems to have been a lot more calmer. Is that a good idea or is that a bad idea based on the fact that they don't have a lot of the players that they had last season? A lot of them are on loan.
Bad idea. It really is. I'm with Graham here. I don't understand the rationale here. I mean, the only thing I'm looking at to give the boy any sort of benefit of doubt is maybe he's got 3 goals and 12 appearances for Sweden. Apart from that, he's not really done anything of note for Man U, and that's me scraping the barrels to try and defend him. But I can't see it. It's signs of desperation. No desperation, but probably a lack of direction with Nottingham Forest transfer strategy. And I think the fact that they've held off to the end of July to start doing their business, to start doing anything of note, they do need to bring a lot of players in. If that's the calibre, I don't know. My heart says that it's going to be a wee bit scattergun and Nottingham Forest are maybe going to be in the transfer deadline headlines, just about who did they bring in last minute.
8
I don't
players
think
coming
that
in the
ever
last
bodes
day of the
well for
window.
a team. Aye, and they've not got a great foundation to build on either for last year, so I'm probably a bit concerned for Forest if this is how they're kicking off their summer.
And I think they've. Am I right in thinking that they've let a couple of the defenders go? A couple of the Scottish boys. Have they come back up north?
There's been rumours of Jonathan Banzo and at one point Scott McKenna. I don't think they've left yet. I think Joe Worrell's still there as well. But it's a lot of these rumours are starting for down south about Banzo and McKenna moving away. And you tend to think when the rumours start a bit more locally and it makes its way cross country, there tends to be a bit more substance to it. So I think I'm not. I don't think they're great defensively. I don't think they've really got an out and out centre half pairing. So that's probably where I would have started. But then to go and spend £50 million on, a kind of bang average winger, it's a bit bemusing.
Fair enough. And I'll move on to another transfer, and this is obviously a bit more high profile. Graham, Newcastle have finally announced that Harvey Barnes, they've got that deal over the line, and it looks as though St. Maximum's going to go to Saudi Arabia for the best part of 40 million, and they've turned that money around and spent 39 on Harvey Barnes. Goodbye. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a relatively goodbye. I don't think it's like a crazy. I don't know. I think St. Maximum's better on his day than Harvey Barnes. I think both are potentially what you'd maybe call confidence players. Maybe the right time for St. Maximum to move on. I think again the price. I keep looking at some of the prices that players are going for just now, and I always go back to Tottenham getting Madsen for 40 million. And when I look at the same price for Harvey Barnes, when I look at what's been quoted for say Conor Gallagher, etc., I just think it's quite steep, and for me, it just shows just how good a deal that Madsen deal was. And I do look at other teams, and I do wonder why nobody really was challenging Spurs for him, or certainly that I was aware of. So, yeah, I don't know. Is that a goodbye? Maybe, yeah. good squad depth. Would I expect them to turn the Premier League inside out with Newcastle? No.
Johnny, so Newcastle brought in Harvey Barnes, and they brought in Sandro Tonali. They've already confirmed that they probably don't have as much in the purse as what everybody expected them to have. Does it surprise you with the business that they've done? Do you think they would have started somewhere else, or do you think they're doing the right things at the right time?
It's hard to criticise them, considering how well they done last year with the signings. A lot of the players they brought in last year were what I would have classed as journeymen, who I thought, they're going to be lucky to get mid-table, and it's on the complete opposite of that. They all pretty much played above their level. I don't think Barnes is a bad signing. I think he's good for Leicester on his day. He's, try to think, 25, 26, give or take. So still got his best years really ahead of him. So yeah, I think it's a decent signing. I mean, the Saudi probably don't have as much in the bank because they spend all their money in Saudi. They ain't spending much in the UK. So Newcastle have a huge midfield squad. Their actual midfield block in their squad is massive. So I mean, my question would be, where does he fit in? I think St. Max is an explosive player, excellent off the bench, and can change a game. But injured a lot. Not really I wouldn't class him as reliable. So
I think he played about 10 games last season, or 10 starts, should I say.
I don't think it's a bad replacement if St. Max goes the opposite way. Well, not the opposite way. If he goes over to Saudi, I don't think that's a bad shout. So yeah, I think it could work. It could work okay. I don't know what their starting midfield would be, or their ideal midfield. I'm looking at it right now, and I'm still not sure.
Colin, I'll move on. We've got a team that's kind of quietly going about the business, but seem to be getting some really good deals across the line. And I think a lot of people are starting to notice them now. It's Aston Villa. They obviously had a good, strong finish to the season in terms of goal scored and get the results under Unai Emery. But they've now made 3 what I would call significant signings, improvements in the team. And the most recent one that they've brought in is Diaby from Leverkusen. Who looks to be, well sought after this summer. Do you know much about him? What's your thoughts on Villa as a whole going into the new season?
I think Villa are keeping the momentum with that upward trajectory that they finished on, with Emery getting the best out of the squad, finding their rhythm, bringing the players together. You can see a better style of play, and they were a very good unit, and they finished the season so strongly. And the question is, how do they continue to build on that? And I think with the signings brought in, they do add their all first team signings. I think I've said time and time again in this pod, the best way to add depth is to bring in somebody better than who's in the first 11, and then they need to battle out, and that's what they've done. This boy Diaby, just looking at him today and prep for the pod, he's a 1-4. He's a 1 goal in 4 games. It's like it's like 1 goal in every 3.5 games. If you're doing that out in the wing, that's something that Villa, it's another string of the bow. I think is valuable to get to get goals every second or third game from out in the wing, as well as your strikers. I think that will be a very, very good signing. It'll be interesting to see if anybody, any big names move on for Villa, but because obviously they spent a lot of money, there's no really been any high profile players go the other way. I just wonder how they react to that. Is there a plan for if one of their mainstays go? But no, really impressed with how they're doing so far.
Graham, just on that, I suppose one of the biggest names that the Aston Villa fans are expecting to move on and free up a lot of the wages would be Philip Coutinho. I think if there's anybody screaming for a Saudi move, it's probably him. But the question I probably would have is, what do they do if Watkins gets injured? They just don't seem to have that out-and-out striker. And I suppose, I don't know if you watched it, but the England under-21 player that they had, Cameron Archer, who looked really, really good in the tournament. Do you think Emery would put his faith in an under-21 player to kind of cover Watkins, or do you think they're still going to go? And the reason why I'm asking that is that means if not, that would indicate they're going to go back out and they're going to potentially buy another striker. And then going on Colin's narrative is you're going to buy somebody that's probably either better than Watkins or of equal value, shall we say?
I don't think they'll go and buy somebody better than him, I guess, so to speak. I think he'll definitely be the number one. Do I think they do need some backup? Yes, absolutely. I've not seen them linked. I mean, they're doing well in strengthening the spine of their team, that's for sure. The business they've done already has been pretty outstanding, and I fully expect them to really push and cement their place in the top six this season. And I think they're honestly under Emery as well. I think they're almost a dead cert to go really far, if not win the Conference League this year as well. So yeah, I don't know. There's still a long way of the window to go. I guess it's all ifs and buts. Do I think Emery will put his faith in an under 21 player? If he's good enough, why not? But is he good enough to run the line for Aston Villa if Watkins out? That's another story. So maybe we'd expect to see a deal maybe a bit later in the window. Who knows?
Johnny, what's your thoughts on Villa?
Yeah, just pretty much echoing what's been said. The signings have been excellent. Tielemans was a really good addition for them. Torres, I was surprised with that one. I thought he would probably go elsewhere for more money. 33, for my opinion, for Torres is a bargain. The lad Diaby he's fire. He's lightning and very, very good. His assist record is excellent. Seen a fair bit of him in the Bundesliga, and I think he started at PSG. Pretty sure that's where he started, yeah. But
I think he played the opposite wing to Havertz, didn't he?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good signing for them. For anybody, really. It would be my first name on my fantasy football. I think for Villa is going to be Diaby. I think he's going to really, really land. You know, a lot of players take a lot of time to settle. I think he's going to land fast.
Johnny with a wee FPL plug in there. Graham, quick question just on the Emery. So we've obviously sat and spoke about Emery quite a lot, and it's quite evident he is, he's the real deal and he's doing the right things. Do we see that being under threat by a bigger team coming in for him at some point in the new season, or do you think Emery's, no, I'm here and I'm going to make Villa, be as best as they can?
Nah, I think he's here. I think that's him. I think he's managed some huge clubs. Obviously, more recent Arsenal, PSG. Maybe things haven't went as well as he'd wanted them to. I think he felt he had a point to prove back in the English Premier League. So, really, only unless maybe a club in the English Premier League bigger than Villa were to come into him, maybe, which I wouldn't have thought would happen. So, no, unless it's an absolutely huge club, which again I don't see happening. I think he could be there for the long term. To be perfectly honest with you.
I think it's evident from the signings he's making as well that they're obviously backing him. They all seem to be Emery type of signings, don't they? Not one that's forced on you by the club. They all seem to be his kind of people.
To be fair, they backed Gerrard. I just think Gerrard's signings were poor. I think when you look at 30 million on Luca Dean, etc., who's an older player, bringing back Dino to the Premier League again, older experience. I think Gerrard, certainly at Rangers, looked to sign maybe younger, hungrier players. I just think he went wrong. I think they backed him. I think it's just under Emery they've maybe got a more clear vision in what he wants to do, certainly in the league in Europe, and they're buying well.
Fair enough. We've got West Ham, Colin, today attempting to spend the Declan Rice money. They've reportedly had a concrete offer for Conor Gallagher of roughly 40 million rejected from Chelsea, and apparently they're sniffing about James Ward-Prowse trying to get him on the cheap for about 25 million. I don't know how true that one is, but it seems to be that West Ham are now trying to spend the money that they have, obviously, for Rice. But it doesn't look as though they're trying to do anything flash with it, just more Premier League experience.
I mean, I think we just copy and paste. Haven't we said about the English price tax and buying for the English league, 40 million for Conor Gallagher? I can't really see the sense in that. I think he's a decent enough player, but I don't think we're getting value for money. The James Ward-Prowse one, I do think that's a more sensible signing for West Ham, because I think they could reinvest that money elsewhere in the squad. I think they over relied on Rice too much. I think James Ward-Prowse comes in, does a decent enough job, shows up that midfield, and then they can go on and go and get maybe a keeper a level up, add more firepower up front. I'd hope they go for that. Conor Gallagher, I think he comes in, does a job, but I think I don't think his money well spent. I think, having said that, I'm going to contradict myself. He is getting a bit of a rep because of the price tag. He can't control
Was this Gallagher?
Gallagher. He can't control what people are going to pay for him. I think in the next 2 or 3 years he will develop into a decent enough player. Maybe West Ham is his level, but I don't think it's what they need right now. Not for that money.
Johnny, I know you've got other feelings on Conor Gallagher's ownership team at the moment, but in terms of West Ham, do you think he fits into that mould, as Colin says? Does it surprise you that West Ham are the front suitors for him?
No. Yes and no. They need somebody. And something we discussed previously was, would they take that money and blast it on a like-minded midfielder? But it was hard to see West Ham spending, say, 100 million for a midfielder. Or do they try and spread it when they are absolutely screaming for squad depth? They really, really are toiling, and it looks like that's possibly what they're going to do. No, he's no Declan Rice. He's not the same caliber, but he's still developing. Again, I would have a hard time judging him on last season because Chelsea were dog shit across the board. That's just, there wasn't a good player between them, and I think they all looked awful. They all complemented each other in a terrible way. So that would be quite unfair to do that. Yeah, he was only on loan for a short period of time when he'd done well at Palace, but it was a wee bit further forward for them. But he was really good for them. Short period of time or not. Yeah, he got a wee bit more free rein. So yeah, short period of time or not, he was okay. So I just think Chelsea would be mad to let another midfielder go. Now, I know they've brought in all these prospects for South America and stuff, but you can't throw these kids into the Premier League and expect them just to start clicking right away. That's going to take time. They're going to have to get used to the game and maybe playing in the 23s, whatever. It needs to be something like that. They need somebody who can go in right now. So if they let another one go, I mean, I said that to you, I think earlier in the chat, that if you look at the midfielders that they've let go, if you had asked any or the majority of Chelsea fans pre-season who their starting midfield would have been, I'd say 80% of them have been sold. That was before we knew what was going on and all the Saudi players that were going to make moves. They've let so many go, and a lot of these guys are, they're getting on or they're injury prone, but there wasn't really much better. So I think to let another one go, regardless of what they think of them, I just don't think they can afford to, unless they have something in mind, which they might well do.
Well, it looks as though they've set their asking price at 50 million, and you would anticipate West Ham are going to come back, so it's probably all that they are looking to sell him. Graham, just on West Ham, just to kind of bring it back, they've obviously opted to potentially fill the Declan Rice void. Does it surprise you that they're not linked with any strikers so far, or do you think that'll happen once they bring in midfielders?
Yeah, I guess. But listen, the void to Rice is the void that you're talking about. Their best player, their captain. That's always got to be priority for them. West Ham have went through strikers like nobody else probably in the last decade or so. They have a horrible strike rate. Ironically, with buying players that do well for them up front. So it doesn't surprise me that I don't know if they are looking. They're certainly taking their time. But yeah, listen, it's got replacing Rice has to be number one. I do agree that Ward-Prowse I think would be a really sensible option if they can get him at a decent price. If they're going in at 25, I mean, I wouldn't be looking to pay more than 30 million for him. But listen, West Ham, everyone knows they've just raked in for Rice, so that they're going to be held to ransom, whoever they go for, and whether that's in England or in Europe or abroad, wherever, they're going to be held to ransom for the price. So yeah, they've got to be quite careful and sensible in the market, but they've got to make sure it doesn't slip by either. They need to get some business done, and they need to get it done sooner than later, rather than later.
And that'll bring us on to the next topic. I know you absolutely love this topic, Graham, and it's obviously the ever-going wheel of Harry Kane. Has your opinion changed since the last time you were on? Last time you were on, you were very vocal about him staying so he can get this record rather than moving. The reports at the weekend were that his wife was apparently over in Munich looking at potential houses. Do you think he'll still stay? Do you think he'll move? Because obviously, it's been a couple of weeks since you were on.
Listen, maybe she's just going at that notorious Munich holiday destination, maybe it's just holiday home she's shot for, who knows. Nah, listen, I think I'd said at the end of his career, you're going to have a wall full of trophies, like some of the best players that there's ever been. Even at this stage of his career, that's not going to be Harry Kane. Whether he chooses to write himself into kind of English folklore and be the best striker that England's national team's ever seen, be the best striker that the Premier League's ever seen, these are the choices he's going to make. It looks less and less likely that an English Premier League club would come in for him. I thought maybe one more season at Tottenham, see how Postecoglou does, see where he feels it going, and then he's kind of got that decision to make next summer. He can talk to any club he wants for nothing, or he could potentially see out his career with Tottenham. I don't know. I think it's 50-50. Look, if his wife's looking at houses in Munich, and if there's any actual truth in that, then yeah, it looks like the chat is obviously players tend to agree the contract before the clubs agree a price. So if that is what happens these days, then potentially he's already agreed, and it is just a back and forth between Tottenham and Munich. But you've got to imagine they can't be that far away in price if the negotiations are still going on for this long. So who knows? Who knows? I think it would be a bit of a shame to see him go at this point, to be honest. But I'm sure Alan Shearer would be delighted.
Colin, I'm not going to bore you to death about whether or not he's going to go. I probably approach it from a different angle. It kind of seems Tottenham's whole summer is on pause, waiting for Harry Kane. I kind of feel a bit sorry for Big Ange in terms of what he potentially wants to do with the club. It must be holding up everything that's going on at Tottenham right now.
Sorry for Big Ange. Know your audience here, Jamie. Like,
I'm trying to remain impartial here.
No, in that was probably the only point. I mean, I think we've argued to death about
Whether he's going to go or
should
not.
Kane go, will he go, blah blah blah. What this changes thing for me is it's a change, like the 180 turn for Daniel Levy. Like what's changed where he's suddenly like willing to accept the offers now, and they seem, if we go with the news reports today and over the last few days, they seem willing to. I mean, I don't for a minute think Bayern Munich have went over the odds here and, paid an extra 10, 15, 20 million on top of what the initial offer was. There would have been a bit of wriggle room, but I can't help but think, is there a plan to bring somebody else in? There must be something. Something had to change his mind. So, but you're right. For an Ange Postecoglou point of view, you'd rather the players on the pitch and you can get working with them in the training ground sooner rather than later. The promises of once X player goes, Y player will come in, it doesn't help your preparation. If the longer that goes on, the more disruptive it is because he's a big character in that squad. But it does seem as if it'll happen pretty soon. But I don't know. Daniel Levy, he's too shrewd and too much a slimy salesman to know how to set him up his sleeve.
Johnny, just on that, it would seem pretty criminal to think Tottenham, at the last day of the window, and we're still asking, is Harry Kane going to be there the next day? Surely, if they're going to do this, then you kind of need to get it done now so Ange can get the players that he wants in and work on the team the way he wants to. It seems a bit criminal if they, keep pushing to keep him. Or what I'm saying, I'm surprised there's actually been no statement from Harry Kane yet to say I want to go or I want to stay, because that kind of seems as though it's the only thing we're missing right now.
He maybe hasn't had to do that this time, Jamie. We had it before when he went away and took a sabbatical for 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's the City deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, because he was promised a move, and yeah, like Colin says, Levy does his business in a particular way. The contract's running down. He's going to want to get something for him. He's never going to let somebody like that go on the cheap. So if there is a solid offer on the table, or at least the potentially one, maybe it's just at the time where he's ready to listen. I don't know, mate, we speak about it every week. I was doing some research for the show tonight, and I scribbled about 5 things down, and what I summarised with Harry Kane was, gonna just fucking go, and that was it. That's all. So we'll see. But listen, seriously, he's a big player in the league. Excellent to watch, and they're going to miss him massively. Mm-hmm. But I think they have to accept that he's earned his move 10 times over.
Yeah, and the Kane saga's just got to keep going on and on. Graham, Man United, we touched on them slightly earlier. They've got the Onana deal across the line, and the goalkeeper's now kind of locked in. They've now moved on to this striker at Atalanta. I think his name's Højlund. They seem to be massive difference apart in terms of a fee. For what's reported as Man United are looking the best part between 50 to 60 million, but it looks as though Atalanta are potentially looking anything up to about 90 million. Excuse me. It sounds like this deal's going to get done. It's just more about confirming a fee, really, isn't it? And do you think this is the right move for them to kind of have this person lead the line for them?
Absolutely. Look, we spoke out Man U last season in terms of if they make the right moves in the summer, they wouldn't be that far away this season if they make the right moves. I think they had a lot better of a season last year than many thought they would. Almost won a double. I guess to win any trophy at a big club is vital. So I'm sure the fans would have been happy with at least some silverware, and probably didn't expect it. And listen, as I say, if they can strengthen the team they have, get rid of some of the deadwood, some of the players that aren't good enough. We spoke about Alanga earlier. I think we all know that they want Harry Kane out the door. But yeah, you're talking about guys like Alanga and Vicost leaving, and you're getting this new boy up front, and Onana in place of De Gea. I think his time had kind of gone, so I think that's going to be an excellent sign as well. So listen, I think as Johnny said earlier, there's maybe a few more players you would potentially expect to leave as well. As I've said, Maguire, maybe McTominay, potentially Fred, etc. There's a few players that they might want to look and move on, and if they can continue to get better players in their place that they have done already, then I really think it could be a promising season for Man U this year.
Colin, anything from you? Would you back echo Graham's comments, or slight different take on it?
No, I said last week I liked the idea of the signing of Onana for the hair, and I think really fits into the the style of play. I know he's a whole sweeper keeper, but I think that's more and more the Premier League are going to. And for the listeners at home, Graham, signalling that Onana, what's his name, chant, I think he was doing there. I mean, that's worth 50 million in itself. I promise no such thing. I think what you're seeing for Man U, they are adding a bit of spine, and they're adding. I got to keep on going on to it. That word depth. They've added a goalkeeper. This Højlund up front is a number 9. Seen today that they're linked with Amrabat for Fiorentina as well. Somebody came in and just as Graham says, if you swap the likes of Amrabat for a McTominay, you're just adding more strength, and you're adding a bit more structure to the spine of the team, because Man U weren't that far away last year, and I think they're improving their first team, which it can be difficult to do, and they're shifting away the Deadwood in the meantime as well. So no, so far so good.
Johnny, I know you've been pretty vocal about Man United playing with this false 9 during the pre-season so far, so it kind of screams that they need this number 9 to come in and start leading from the front, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, they need something, mate. Definitely. Going to go against the grain a bit. I am not convinced that Højlund is ready for that. I think he's a fantastic prospect, but he's not really playing a lot of football. When he has played for Atlanta last season, most of a hell of a lot of those were either bit part or off the bench. 9 goals, 2 assists over the 32 games. Granted, some bit part. Part of that was with Sturm Graz, where he hardly played at all. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to be the right player down the line. It definitely looks like the guy is very, very strong, very, very powerful, as I've said, and knows where the goal is, and very, very good at the ball, with the ball at his feet for a big lad. But to be thrown into a title charge in a long season with European football and whatever else are going to be involved, the cups, the whole shebang, I'm just not sure. Because the money they're talking, if what's being reported is right, it's a lot of buns for something that would be fair to say is unproven.
I think I'm just more surprised. The fee is very Man United. You look at 90 million that they paid for Sancho, 90 million that they paid for Anthony. So the fee doesn't, what Man United prepared to pay doesn't kind of spark anything for me. I would just go back a month. I guarantee you nobody would have put the Atalanta second striker as the person that Man United would be the one, that would be the person that they were essentially looking to bring in. I fully anticipated them to maybe have a go at Harry Kane or an Osimhen, of just somebody of elite status, shall we say. It does surprise me that it's, as Johnny says, this prospect. But
I think
10
a lot of it feels to do. Sorry, mate. A lot of it feels to do with the Haaland effect. It's almost like they missed out on Haaland twice.
Everybody's looking for the next Haaland,
and
didn't
this guy's been touted, and they don't want to miss that again. And like I say, I'm not saying it's a bad signing. I think it probably is a good signing with time, but I think it's a hell of a lot to put on a very young pair of shoulders that hasn't played a lot of, no football at that level would be a fair way to say it. Probably prove me wrong. We'll see, but I think it's a lot of money. It's a huge investment, gamble.
We spoke last week, Jamie, once the pod had finished, about the snobbery for the English Premier League for the likes of the Man U. I think Mitrovic, I think we all said, we were speaking about it last week after the pod had finished. He's probably what Man U need. He's more tested. He's somebody in that mould, but like the Haaland effect is the perfect way to describe it. We're looking for the next up and coming fucking Robocop, the next sexy European striker. Whereas Mitrovic is just there. Like, you've got your own nutcase Premier League ready, but no, it's it won't get bums and seats as much.
One departure that did surprise me, Graham, is Wilfried Zaha going to Galatasaray. He obviously had options in terms of Lazio, Saudi. He had a massive pay increase. I think probably talking about 300 grand a week or something. I think I read for Crystal Palace. He was already on the best part of nearly 200 grand. Does it surprise you that he's went to Galatasaray of all options, or is it just Champions League football?
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I guess they're not guaranteed. They're playing tonight, Galatasaray. So you never know. I mean, they might not even get to the Europa League. I don't think they're guaranteed to drop into that if they fail to get through this leg. So
I think they're 2 each, weren't they? 2 each tonight.
Yeah, 2 each. So no, it doesn't surprise me as such. Look, I think Galatasaray and Fenerbahce are always going to have that kind of big pool for players around Europe. And I think, depending on the clubs that that they're in for. You've named a few like Lazio, etc. I think there really isn't much to go on between those in terms of size of clubs, etc., and kind of passionate fans. I think he just wanted to try something new. Look, I think he's done amazing for Palace. He'll be a club legend. I think the fans absolutely adore him. And I think I've said a couple of times, it didn't work for him at Man U, and I think he's eager to just prove himself at a bigger club, at one that has more expectation. So no, absolutely not surprised that he's kind of went on to something new. And yeah, obviously, I think a bonus is, still collecting a nice, decent wage for it.
Johnny, I was surprised to read that Zaha's going to be 31 this year. It feels like he's been 23 for the last 10 years. He'll definitely be a miss in the Premier League, won't he?
Yeah, it feels like he's been there forever. I actually never realised that. I thought he was a wee bit older than that. You've just educated me. I never realised that. I was a wee bit surprised with Galatasaray. I'm not really sure why, because Graham's pretty much hit the nail on the head. They are a big club. It's a decent league. You'll be getting decent money. They seem to have decent bank. So yeah, it kind of makes sense. And like you said, he's just looking for the next challenge. It's going to be probably a wee bit different for him because he's always been the big fish in a small pond with Palace. Then you've got Galatasaray, a far bigger pool of players. And it's quite a fiery league as well. Zaha, he likes to lose a head every now and then. I'd love to see him in a derby. He nailed on for a red card. But yeah, I mean, best of luck to him. He's been excellent in the league. He's always fun to watch, whether he's turning somebody inside out or losing the head and try to go fighting. There's always entertainment when he's playing.
Colin, just a quick word on Crystal Palace. So obviously Zaha, as Johnny pointed out, was pretty much a talisman for them. I think Palace did really well last season with players like Elise and Eze that kind of came through to the front. But Zaha leaves a big gap for them, doesn't he?
Does and I think there was a bit of a theme running over the last 6 months when we were talking about the teams who are going to struggle to gain Europe or avoid relegation. It is so difficult in the Premier League to get a backup for somebody of that quality. I mean, we see it up and down the league. We're talking about Mitrovic, we're talking about Zaha, we're even talking about Harry Kane. You've got your out and out number 9. It's hard to get somebody who's good enough to fill that void when they're not available or compete, but is also willing to sacrifice game time. Yeah, it will be. I think there's Crystal Palace, Fulham, and they're not the only two. That's the ones we spoke about tonight, but there's a few clubs in and around the Premier League, Wolves as well, I'd say, who are needing a number 9. And so you might see these types of clubs go for the same type of players this summer.
And a quick question. So this is probably a bit of a bugbear for me that I want to kind of share with you guys. That this season, in terms of football tops, so the Premier League, I've got an absolute bugbear with the state of the football tops that I've seen released so far, and I can include my own team, Liverpool, in that. The away tops seem to have this running theme of utter gash, is what I would call. Man United released theirs today, probably the worst top I've ever seen. Arsenal released theirs a week ago, quite confusing top I've ever seen. Liverpool released theirs a couple of weeks back, and it looks like a Minecraft skid mark, if I'm being honest. Have you seen much of the tops this season? And I'm only calling that out because it's always kind of fun seeing these tops. Some people buy them, some people don't. I'm very traditional on the home tops, but Graham, what's your thoughts? Have you seen any of the tops that have been released so far this season?
First of all, just to say, I have no idea on the reference of what a Minecraft skid mark looks like or is. So, thanks.
That's your homework. You've got to go away and look at that.
Thanks for that. Some of them are truly horrendous. To be honest, I think the Arsenal one specifically for me, like I know Adidas seems to be the biggest. don't know, experimental brand this summer with some of their kits. But like Arsenal, especially over the years, some of their kits have been amazing. I'm a neutral when it comes to Premier League anyway, but I think some of the kits Arsenal have released, over the years have been really, really good. And I think that one that they've released, I don't know. I
It's
don't
like
know
a
what
turquoise something into it.
brutal, but I find that more offensive than the Man U one. Actually, genuinely,
Really?
and that's a horror. But when I look at Man U tops gone by over the last 2 seasons, I actually think they've been worse. So yeah, I think I look at my own team strips this season, and I'm thankful because I think some of them down in England are just horrendous. And I don't know if it's because the money that they're paying the teams, whether it's a thing of can we be more experimental, can we get people talking about it? Look at us 4 guys sitting having a podcast with the Premier League, we're talking about the strips. You would like to imagine that's the point, that's what they want. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, they're honking. I won't be buying any of them, that's for sure.
Johnny, I'll come to your beloved Chelsea, who decided so far they're not even going to go with a sponsor. So it looks kind of abnormal to say the least. What's your thoughts on the strips that you've seen so far?
Chelsea's are just very boring this year. And, just kind of plain and straightforward. There's nothing adventurous. Although looking at the state of some of them, that's maybe not a bad thing. Man United's is criminal. It's so bad. It just reminds me of that film, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. The cover for that, because that's what it looks like. And I'm not really sure what's worse, because I would agree with Graham. Arsenal's is absolutely terrible. The only way I can liken it is like, when you find a tin of paint in the cupboard, it's been there for about 15 years, and you open it and try and stir it. That's what
You've
that
got to
kit
give it a
looks
stir.
like. Yeah, it's really bad. I was looking today, I'd seen those 2, but I hadn't seen Bournemouth's away kit. That's a stinker as well. It looks like they're under solely a pair of Dunlops. It's really bad. So they're probably the standouts that made me think that that's poor. Thing is, they'll still buy them in droves. Yeah, I've seen a few crackers as well. Newcastle's third kit is really nice. And I think it was Spurs. I don't know if it's their away kit or their third kit. I'm not sure, but that's really nice.
What colour was it? Is it the black one with the green tint?
I don't think
Newcastle
so.
one?
I think it's like a dark blue, really dark blue. Yeah,
Newcastle's away one looks pretty decent.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's their third kit. But
I've just googled the Bournemouth away kit. It looks more like a thumbprint or something. That is horrendous. That is a shocker.
Colin, obviously, I know you're a stickler for a top. That's how you identify what team's playing on Match of the Day, because that's about as far as your research goes. What's your thoughts on some of the tops that you've seen?
I'm going to send this last part of the pod to all the Premier League clubs to just make life easy for them. They should just stop fucking about with these designs. The reason that I like looking at Match of the Day for the top simple kits is because that's how you know what team's playing. Football should go back to the days where you have your home top with your home colours. The away top should be the same style, the same design, just in your away colours, and we should stop all this fucking about, honestly. That's my tuppence worth on it. Yes, I'm a hypocrite because I will be buying the Rangers orange and blue stripe kit because it's fucking stunning. But for everybody else, please take note. I can't be bothered with it.
I think my main bugbear is that, like Liverpool, for example, have got a really good brand. They've got Nike, and you think, well, there's quite a lot of teams that use the Nike brand, and you look at some of the tops and you go, they're fucking pretty awesome. Who the fuck thought that Minecraft skid mark would be a Liverpool-esque? And I just don't get it. I mean, surely they must have like a panel of people that buy these tops and kind of take their opinions on board, and they must have went to a bunch of 10-year-olds this year for Liverpool. So yeah, I've got a big problem with it. It's not as bad as the one that we had 2 years ago, which was like the yellow Five Guys top. It looked like an American diner. It was probably the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, I certainly won't be buying the away top this season. I broke the home top, and I think that's my whack. I'm not going to go and add any more money to FSG until they change the tops, really. And that kind of brings us to the end of this week's podcast. Kept that a bit light for the ending. We've got obviously a few weeks left until the Premier League kicks off. I think the opening fixtures on the 11th of August. It's Friday Night Football, and some interesting fixtures coming up for the first round. And there's probably still a lot of transfers to happen between now and then, which is what we've already identified. Graham, thank you very much for coming on.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me. I'm going to try and I've googled Minecraft skid mark, but I'm not still really seeing what he means. So yeah, I think I'll just leave that one with you.
You're still sitting there with your pipe and slippers on, aren't you? So
I made sure not to Google it without Minecraft in front of it. I'm sure the images could have been pretty disgusting. So yeah, I'll leave that with you. Thanks.
Good man. Colin, thank you very much for coming along.
Always a pleasure, gents. Thanks very much for having me on. A wee shout out, if you've not already done so, join our fantasy football Premier League, a Premier League fantasy football league. Sorry. Details on the socials. £300 up for grabs for your boots listeners.
Happy days. And finally, Johnnie, thank you very much for coming along.
Pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me. It's been fun working with you and the lads. It's been a good show. And yeah, definitely stay away from searching for skid marks without the Minecraft in front of it, because we don't want to be responsible for that.
Is that
right,
the
guys?
this week's episode, searching for skid marks?
Minecraft skid marks. There you go. That's the name of the pod. Right, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we'll speak to you soon.